Right now in South Korea, the dating scene has officially turned into the ultimate comedy of errors. And honestly, it is a bit like watching someone complain that their gourmet sandwich is not a bowl of hot soup while they are standing in the middle of a rainstorm. You have got this wild situation where the home team advantage has basically been set on fire and tossed out the window. Imagine a world where everyone is obsessed with those glossy TV dramas where the guy is a billionaire who spends his entire day pining over a girl. But in reality, the actual people on the ground are looking at each other like they are staring across a battlefield. Recent data from the streets has revealed something that would have been unthinkable just a decade ago in such a tight-knit society. It turns out that about 68% of women are still all in on dating local men, but the men have completely checked out. For the first time ever, the number of men who actually prefer a local partner has crashed down to a measly 47%. That is a massive red flag. It is like a premium brand suddenly realizing that half its customers would rather buy the generic version or just stop shopping entirely. Even in public interviews where people usually try to act polite and follow the crowd, men are openly saying they would rather look elsewhere, specifically toward Japan. When a society that is famous for its national pride starts looking across the ocean for romance, you know the domestic contract has not just expired, it has been shredded and fed to a paper tiger. But why would they actually demand this? Why is this whole thing falling apart so spectacularly? It all comes down to the most brutal version of the money-hungry market you can imagine. We are talking about a world where romance is not about two souls meeting. It is about two bank accounts negotiating a merger that favors one side heavily. The core of the problem is that for a long time, the model for a successful life was built on a very specific trade. The man was supposed to be the provider, the one who brings home the cash, buys the house, and basically pays for the privilege of being part of a family. In exchange, he was supposed to get respect and a stable home life. But in this hyper-competitive capitalist jungle, that trade has turned into a total rip-off. Women in the country have increasingly leaned into a mindset where they want all the freedoms of a modern, independent life, but still expect the man to foot the bill like it is the 1950s. It is a ruthless fight for the biggest slice of the financial pie. Romance has been commodified to the point where people are not looking for a partner, they are looking for a subsidized lifestyle. They want the billionaire from the TV show, but they want him to be emotionally submissive and pay for everything while they find themselves. It is a recipe for disaster because the product being sold, the traditional marriage, is now being viewed by men as an overpriced, low-durability asset that is likely to break the moment you take it home. So what is the next logical question? Why did everyone suddenly change their minds? To understand that, you have to look at the massive backfire of the Western dream. Back around 2017, there was this huge movement where a lot of women decided that local men were too traditional, too boring, and too tied to their families. They had this fantasy that dating a Western guy would be like living in a Hollywood movie, pure freedom, no nagging in-laws, and total equality. But then they actually went out and tried it, and reality hit them like a freight train. They found out that in the West, equality often means Dutch pay. It means you pay for your own coffee, you split the rent 50-50, and you work just as hard as the guy does to keep the lights on. Suddenly, the oppressive local man who was expected to pay for the $300,000 apartment and the 5-course wedding started looking like a luxury asset they had accidentally trashed. The 68% of women who now say they want a local man are not doing it out of a sudden surge of patriotism. They are doing it because they realize the local provider model is the best economic deal on the planet. They want that financial safety net back. They realize that total independence is exhausting, and having a guy who bears 80% of the financial burden is a much better way to survive in a tough economy. But here is the kicker: what happened when they tried to go back? This is where the hypocrisy really starts to sting. While the women were off chasing the fantasy of Western liberalism, the men were having a massive wake-up call of their own. They realized they were being treated like walking atoms that also needed to be perfect, sensitive, and constantly apologetic for existing. They looked at the contract they were being offered and saw it was a total trap. Society demands that a man provide a house and a steady income, which is a very traditional expectation. But at the same time, it tells him he has zero authority and that his sacrifices are just the basic requirement for being a man. It is a complete contradiction. You are expected to be the old-school breadwinner, but with none of the old-school gratitude. Men started asking themselves a very simple question: why should I pay a premium price for a partner who views my hard work as an entitlement rather than a sacrifice? They are tired of the accumulated fatigue of being the only ones expected to carry the heavy lifting while being mocked for the way the system used to work. This is why they are looking at Japan. They see a culture there that still seems to value a traditional exchange where effort is met with respect rather than a list of new demands. And it gets even worse when you look at the legal side of things, which is the real sinkhole in this whole setup. Men have started to realize that the legal system is basically a giant trapdoor waiting to swing open. If a marriage fails, and they fail a lot these days, the asset division and child support laws are designed in a way that can wipe out decades of a man's labor in a single afternoon. Even if the man provided 100% of the initial wealth, the modern legal interpretation often hands half of it over to the spouse who did not earn it, regardless of what actually happened in the relationship. To a guy who has spent 10 years working 14-hour days in a high-pressure office just to buy a family home, this looks like a predatory scam. Why would you enter a contract where the exit cost is literally your entire future? The laws were made to protect people back when only one person worked, but in a world where everyone is capable, these rules are being used as a tool for financial extraction. Men are having this awakening where they see the system is rigged. They are deciding that the potential gain of having a family is way lower than the guaranteed risk of losing everything they have ever worked for. The cultural context makes this even more absurd because everything in this society is about surface appearance. There is this crushing pressure to look successful, to live in the right apartment, and to have the perfect wedding photos to show off on social media. This has turned marriage into a status symbol instead of a partnership. It is like everyone is competing to see who can have the most expensive life, but no one has the energy to actually live it. The system is designed to squeeze every last drop of economic output from the men to fuel a lifestyle of consumption that the economy cannot even support anymore. We have built a machine that produces nothing but envy and exhaustion. You have to be rich to get married, you have to be even richer to stay married, and if you get divorced, you end up broke. It is a game where the only way to win is not to play. That is why the birth rate has plummeted to the lowest in the entire world. People are not having kids because they are selfish. They are not having kids because they are acting like rational actors in a failing market. When the cost of entry is a lifetime of debt and the contract stability is zero, the only logical move is to walk away. So what does the future look like? It looks like a ghost society. We are heading toward a world where high-tech apartment buildings are filled with people who only talk to their eye assistants or their dogs. Children have become a luxury item that only the top 1% can afford, and even they are hesitant because of the legal risk. The government is frantically trying to throw money at the problem, offering cash prizes for babies and trying to subsidize romance, but they are missing the point. You cannot fix a broken heart with a coupon, and you certainly cannot fix a broken social contract with a one-time check. The gender war has become a global commodity, and every time someone shares a horror story about a divorce or a bad deal on the internet, another 1,000 people decide to stay single. We are watching a nation that is at the peak of human technology basically commit biological suicide because it could not figure out how to make two people respect each other. The mental awakening that is happening among men is not something you can just reverse with a few catchy slogans or a new TV show. Once you see the man behind the curtain, once you realize that the deal is a scam, you cannot go back to believing in the fairy tale. It is all like a broken vending machine. For decades, men were told that if they just kept inserting their time, their money, and their hard work into this machine, they would eventually get a nice, refreshing soda of stable family life and social respect. They did what they were told for generations. But recently, the machine has stopped giving out the soda. Now, you put your money in, and the machine just slaps you in the face and hands you a lawsuit. The people standing next to the machine, the ones who are supposed to be the partners in this whole deal, are looking at the men and shouting, "Why are not you putting any more coins in? Look how shiny and pretty the machine is. You are being so selfish." But the men have already walked away. They are either looking for a different machine in a different country, or they have just decided they are not thirsty anymore. The people left standing by the machine are shouting at an empty street, holding a product that nobody wants to buy at the current price. It is a tragic comedy where the price of admission is your entire future, and the reward is a chance to be mocked for your efforts. No amount of advertising or TV dramas can save a product that fails to deliver what it promises. The K-marriage brand is currently in a death spiral, and unless someone figures out how to make the exchange fair again, the silence in the streets is only going to get louder. Fuel the truth at dating in Korea. Support the structure. Stay safe in the lounge.